Since the formation of the state, governments have relied on propaganda to keep the masses obedient, compliant, and controlled. With the advent of Bernays and Goebbels over the past couple decades, we've seen governments perfect the subtlety and sophistication of propaganda. One has to look no further than the U.S., where the government and stenographic media work hand in glove to promote an agenda of fear and war, all under the guise of liberty, democracy, and security. Manufactured talking points like terrorists, militants, and weapons of mass destruction have often been repeated throughout the media establishment without question, preying on the emotions of the unassuming public. But perhaps no government has mastered the technique more than the U.S.'s greatest ally in the Middle East, Israel. In fact, there's a term specifically for Israeli propaganda called Hasbara, which in Hebrew means explanation. According to 972 Mag, Hasbara is, quote, a form of propaganda aimed at an international audience. It's meant to influence the conversation in a way that positively portrays Israeli political moves and policies, including actions undertaken by Israel in the past. Often, Hasbara efforts include a negative portrayal of the Arabs and especially of Palestinians. And never is Hasbara more obvious than when Israel launches unrestrained military actions in the occupied Palestinian territories. Its latest offensive, Operation Protective Edge, is on day 16. According to Reuters, the death toll has now exceeded 750 mostly civilian casualties, and at least 140,000 people displaced in refugee camps and UN-operated schools and shelters at the time of this broadcast. However, just this morning, news broke that IDF shelled one such UN school, where refugees had been seeking safety. At least 17 are dead from the attack and dozens left wounded and helpless as Gaza's hospitals reach full capacity. Furthermore, Israel has continued the shelling and sniper fire unleashed in Khan Yunis early Wednesday, killing dozens. According to the Palestinians' Red Crescent, at least 250 civilians are trapped in the neighborhood in the midst of relentless attacks. But as horrifying as the violence continues to be, you'll still find thousands of sock puppets and Hasbara trolls defending the massacre across the web. I've already covered on this show how right-wing groups like the Yesha Council of Settlements have a course teaching Israelis how to edit Wikipedia in a pro-Zionist fashion. But the information war doesn't stop with Wikipedia. It exists even on dating websites and applications. I kid you not. According to The Nation, a dating profile on the popular application Tinder named Israel has been sharing updates with potential mates, including such pickup lines as, we're using anti-missile systems to protect our civilians, and they're using their civilians to protect their missiles. That's the difference. And while Israel protects the holy sites of Jerusalem, Hamas targets rockets at them. Ooh, seductive. And keep in mind, this account was traced back all the way to the office of the Israeli Prime Minister. Moving on to social media, where an entire room labeled in Hebrew the Hasbara War Room exists at a prestigious Israeli university, where there are currently more than 400 volunteers working around the clock to argue pro-Israeli talking points on Facebook threads, pages, and profiles. Wow, no wonder why a million brand new accounts pop up on all my Facebook pages whenever I criticize Israel that have never commented on anything before. But not all Hasbara trolls are volunteers. You see, last fall, The Independent reported that the Israeli government offers scholarships to students at several universities if they share pro-Israel tweets and Facebook posts with foreign audiences. And considering Twitter is one of the most popular places to share information real time, it's been an incredibly useful tool to relay facts about the horrors on the ground in Gaza, which could be why the Israeli government has honed in on the resource to spread as much Hasbara as it possibly can. Twitter Hasbara ranges from paid-for promoted tweets by PM Netanyahu declaring unrelenting Hamas rocket fire and the IDF spokesperson justifying the shelling of civilian neighborhoods to a never-ending stream of infographics. Like this one, which asks, when does a house become a legitimate military target, showing a multi-tiered house full of rockets and a command center? Fascinating how we haven't even seen one photo of a house that looks remotely like these scary bunkers they're telling us litter Gaza. But as if this wasn't ridiculous enough, check out this image tweeted by the IDF, saying that Israel uses weapons to protect civilians, while Hamas uses civilians to protect its weapons, showing a house full of missiles with a bunch of people standing on its roof. So according to Israel, every single house they're targeting or shelling has people in it protecting weapons, Once again, never has this been proven with actual evidence. And throughout this offensive, the only proven case of weapons being stored in a residential area was the discovery of rockets in an abandoned UN school. But considering how Gaza is one of the most densely populated places on Earth, with a population of 1.8 million people, it's nearly impossible to heavily shell any place in Gaza without a civilian toll. And not only that, but the people who have died inside their homes have nowhere else to go. Gaza is under siege from every side, with every border closed. Just this week, I spoke to Gaza resident Suha Najjar, who debunked the human shield claim.
I've been considered being used as a human shield by Hamas because I'm an American here and I'm staying in my house. But no, when I got the phone call, and I got a phone call today from Israel and I refused to answer, telling me that I have to leave my home and I have to evacuate, I say no, I don't want to, because this is my home and I'm not going to leave it. And then what Israel does is uses that and says, well, see, Hamas is telling people to stay in their homes. They're using them as human shields. But this is something that's coming to the people. It's their right to stay in their home.
Right, exactly.
And I think the only time I've ever seen human shields being used is by Israeli soldiers when they take over buildings and they keep civilians inside the buildings as they shoot from the top.
Amazingly, Israel has used human shields. And here are just 3 examples in the last 5 years. All right. So if both sides use this tactic, can we stop using the term to legitimize murder? Look, the term human shield has become the crux of Hasbara, and it's being used to absolve Israel of responsibility every time it bombs a hospital, refugee center, or home, killing civilians en masse. Apparently, as long as entities operate behind an official army and sophisticated weaponry sanctioned by the West, conducting terrorism against civilians is legitimate. Propaganda works to make one man's freedom fighter another man's terrorist. And you know, I can't imagine any other country massacring almost 1,000 people and still blame the people for committing self-genocide rather than the bombs, guns, and tanks that actually killed them. But hey, that's just the magic of Hasbara.